All right, what is up, everybody? A1 wrap-up show happening here. So you can see my hair is a mess because I've been doing this all night. That was an action-packed A1. Before we jump into the reaction show here, just want to thank our sponsor. This show this year brought to you by Complete Racing Solutions and Coach Rob. Make sure to go check out the Coach Rob Podcast Network. He has all sorts of things from navigating amateur motocross to vet motocross to everything in between with training. There will be a link in the description down below. You can go check out his podcast there. Great listens, tons of information, especially if you've got a young one for that amateur motocross stuff. But let's jump into this A1 reaction here. So let's start with the 250 class. Deegan is absolute gold. That kid is, when he retires, I'm shutting the podcast down. That's just all there is to it. This channel goes away when Deegan is done, when he retires, because he is just absolute gold and content. From commenting on Levi's post today to posting a story about him and Duffy discussing going East Coast to winning that heat and making the comment of, yeah, well, you know, some of the heavy hitters decided to take a break this weekend. I mean, just unreal. However, I do have to give it to him here. When he does screw up, when he does not get a finish, he does take the cockiness out of it, right? So coming in very cocky, very talking all that smack, nobody wants this smoke type deal. And then you get to the main, has the problem in the first corner there, ends up only coming back to fifth, not happy about getting interviewed for fifth, and then basically being like, yeah, just give it up to the boys. Like, they're the ones who came out and dominated tonight, so good for them, whatever, and took off. He was obviously disappointed. He was obviously upset at the finish, but at the end of the day, it's racing, and these kind of things happen. So I believe he does understand that. And it wasn't as if somebody took him out. He just got pinched on the start and then ended up with not a great start and then runs into the back of Rider D there. So no big deal. Now, let's talk Joe Shimoda here. So Joe wins, which is a huge surprise to everyone. But at the same time, should it be a huge surprise to us? Because no one was talking about Joe, right? Joe has had pressure every single year since like his rookie season because we all thought Joe could actually compete and win these titles. And so we talk about him, he'd have pressure, and then he would do nothing until the end of the year when no one's talking about him. He started the year with no one literally talking about him, which means he had no pressure. So here we are. Now this week, we'll all talk about him. I'll almost guarantee you next week, and we'll talk about this a lot more on the main show, I'm sure, but I'll almost guarantee you next week, he chokes and maybe gets like a terrible start in like a fifth place. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Obviously, anything can happen, and maybe it's new year, new Joe. Who knows? But for right now, he's got the points lead. He won A1. It's a great way for Joe to start the year here. As far as other 250 stuff goes there, lots of carnage in the 250 class. You know, Jordan Smith rode and did Jordan Smith things. Marchbanks did Marchbanks things. And yeah, and outside of that, you watch Deegan come back to fifth place. Juju actually did kind of exactly what I thought he'd do after qualifying there, which was be really, really good. He kept Joe in check all race. That's my bedtime already. Shocker. He kept Joe honest all race, only with a couple of seconds between the two of them, and you know, but just ended up second. And I think that's fine. Like, if Juju can do this and run around doing fastest qualifiers, running around battling for heat wins, battling for main wins this season, I think that's a great sophomore year for him. An absolutely great sophomore year. Now let's talk 450s here, because the 450s were also absolutely action-packed. So, man, the highs and the lows of Eli Tomac here. Fastest qualifier all day. Gets to the main event here. Gets a good start. Does a little sneaky move. Makes a pass into first over the triple. And immediately hits the deck in the first corner. But this is a new and improved Eli Tomac that we've been seeing for the last few years of disappointed but excited and pumped on how it actually went and actually wanting to talk about it, wanting to be outgoing and tell his feelings essentially about what he was feeling when he was doing that. So yeah, and what a great ride. I mean, to come from last, he was literally behind Jett Lawrence all the way back to fifth. That was great. That was super great. And a great way to start the season for Eli Tomac. Jason, that podium in the 450 class, outside of Chase being on it, I would have never called the other two to be on it. Kenny rode out of his mind today. Did very Ken Roczen-ish things. We'll see how this goes as the season progresses. But this is not really a strange way for Ken to start the season. We've seen Kenny do this a lot he's really, really good, and he just kind of tapers out as the season goes on. Jason Anderson's in a contract year. We all thought he would be much, much better. Second year on that chassis. Final year of a contract. He really wants a ride, so we all thought he would do better. Supercross hit hard for Jorge Prado. Like, let's face it, Prado absolutely did exactly kind of what I thought on the start, which was get a really good one and, run up front there for a little bit. But then eventually that pace is fast for somebody who doesn't ride Supercross or hasn't rode Supercross. So no real surprise there. And then hit the deck. It gets slick there. Like, this isn't anything wild and crazy. Prado's a good starter. We all figured he would get good starts. Maybe not. Maybe the bike would hold him back. Maybe he wasn't, with it. But when you see it, you're just like, okay, cool. This is par for the course. And it wouldn't surprise me next week if he does the same thing. But at the end of the day, he got a good start, saw the pace up front, ran a good race, hit the deck, but still left in one piece. That's all you can freaking ask for. And the last thing I'll touch on here, because it's kind of the 300-pound elephant in the room, is obviously the Jett situation. I effed up in the qualifying show saying, yep, they have that bike figured out. They do not have that bike figured out. They don't at all. The start wasn't really his fault. Ando was wildly out of control going into that first corner there. So that was just a racing thing, right? Not really Jett's fault. It was just victim of circumstances. And then, but after that, then he crashes coming out of the whoops, an uncharacteristic crash from Jett. But we'll call it being flustered from being at the back of the pack, and then did absolutely nothing, which makes me think that bike is absolutely way, way farther off than what it looked like in qualifying. So now it just becomes a road to how long does it take him to get it figured out. He's got himself about a 15-point deficit at this point, which is big to start. Hasn't happened a lot. We've already been talking about it in the group chat, but we'll have to wait and see. Who knows? He could win next weekend. He could win. Chase could get 8th, and all of a sudden you're looking at a 5-point race, essentially, So who knows what's going to happen. It was a great way to start the season. Again, we will break this all down on the main show, which we are filming tomorrow. So if you haven't, make sure to go over to the members area, join our members. Any level, you can watch us record the show live. We record at 6 p.m. Eastern on Sunday here. And you can see all our thoughts because me, Justin, and Cole will be in studio breaking this all down. We will be calling friend of the show, Eric Grandal, to get his thoughts on tonight, which I'm sure are going to be real positive because he's a big Chase guy. And outside of that, that's been your reaction show. I want to thank y'all for tuning in. I want to thank Complete Racing Solutions for sponsoring this show this year. And we will see you guys on the main show on Tuesday. Later.